Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Dryden. I run a handmade brand called Practical Paper Company. I also run a commercial printing company called AEC Printing, and I consult and teach on sustainable print and design, as well as advertising and PR. Today, I'm going to walk you through 4 core topics: paper weights, paper finishes, printing processes, and how all of that connects together to make more eco-friendly choices for your products and packaging. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll keep things practical so you walk away with actionable ideas. This is me. I just wanted to give you a little sense of who you're actually hearing from. I am a business owner, I'm a professor, and I am an athlete and a dog mom. I love what I get to do every day. I think it's so fun. And if you're at all like me, you're obsessed with different kinds of paper and you have a favorite pen that you will definitely defend if someone tries to make off with it. And I just wanted to give you a sense that I'm a real person and I love getting to talk to you and help you as a business owner myself. I know what really matters, and I just want to make sure that I'm giving you useful, interesting advice. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with paper weight. This is one of the first numbers people look at when ordering paper. There are 2 really common systems. One is pounds and the other is grams per square meter, or GSM. With pounds, the tricky part is that 60 pound for text stock is measured on a differently sized parent sheet than 60 pound cover stock. Papers are measured by weighing a certain size sheet of paper, and then that tells you the paper weight. You might see 2 60-pound papers that feel really different. That's because the base sheet between a text sheet and a cover sheet are different sizes. So you can have 60-pound cover, 60-pound text. They're very different. GSM, or grams per square meter, on the other hand, is a more universal measurement, how many grams a single square meter of paper weighs. This removes the issue of different parent sheet sizes, but GSM doesn't always reflect how thick or rigid a paper feels. If paper uses heavy fillers, coatings, is very dense, it might be heavy but thin. Conversely, bulky cotton or recycled stock might have a lighter weight, but feel thicker than expected based on that GSM. The bottom line is that while weight is a helpful guide, it's not the final answer, and I see people using it as a final answer. We really need to see and touch samples and request printed proofs to know what we're actually going to get. There are a lot of things that can cause a discrepancy between how much a paper weighs and how it feels. There's a couple key factors to keep in mind. The first is coatings and laminations, which can add weight to paper without much thickness. The next is fillers and heavy mineral content in the paper pulp that can make paper denser. So the paper's not necessarily thicker, but it weighs more. So you can have a paper that doesn't feel super thick, but has a high GSM or a high pound weight. There's also the pulp mix that the paper is made out of. So it could be cotton, recycled paper. This is also true for things like PVC papers, which are not true papers, but are sold as like a waterproof alternative to paper. That can affect how thick or soft a paper feels compared to its weight. Then there's treatment processes like calendaring, embossing, compressing that can alter the thickness of a paper without changing the weight. So you can have a thinner paper that's the same weight because of some kind of treatment in the production process. That's why even if 2 stocks have the same pounds or GSM, they can feel really, really different. It is so important to request physical samples. Better yet, if you can get a printed proof on the stock so you can evaluate not just the feel, but how the ink behaves, you can really start to make better decisions about the paper that you want to use. When I talk to clients about print projects, they frequently just want to talk about the paper. But if we don't also consider the finishes that we might be using, we're really leaving behind a big part of the story. You could start with a more affordable, thinner material or something that's more eco-friendly and add a finish to it that can add a luxurious weight. Finishes can also affect how eco-friendly the ultimate result is, so we want to consider this from both ends. The finish strongly influences how your print feels, looks, and even how durable it can be. Uncoated natural papers have no surfaced finish. They frequently feel more textured, and they're great for writing or if you want to create a very natural look with a product. Matte, silk, and satin finishes are low glare, they're soft, they often have a pleasant feel. Gloss and high gloss finishes obviously are shiny, they give a great visual pop. They can often make your colors feel even more vibrant, but they do add glare. There's special finishes like lamination, which can be matte or gloss. We can add aqueous coatings and varnishes. There's things like spot UV and gloss varnish finishes, as well as foil stamping, metallic finishes, embossing. These can also change the appearance, but they also can affect recyclability or how complicated it is to recycle something. So let's talk about that. So when we talk about different kinds of finishes in the context of eco-friendliness, the most important thing to know is that not all finishes can be recycled. Laminated paper, paper sealed with a plastic film, is definitely not recycled in most municipalities. UV coatings, foil, metallic finishes, and heavy varnishes frequently interfere with pulp processing and can reduce the recyclability of your product. That doesn't mean you have to avoid special finishes, but if you're really concerned about the eco-friendliness of your products, really think about what the trade-offs are between the look and feel of some cool, exciting finish and how recyclable your finished product is. We want to use minimal coatings whenever possible to increase the possibility that our products and our package inserts and our packaging can be recycled. If you're not sure, ask the printer that you're working with which finishes they offer that are acceptable to recyclers in your region. And think about more eco-friendly finishes if you don't just want plain paper, like aqueous coating, a low VOC varnish, or a PVC paper. So something that's actually not a paper, but a paper substitute that can be recycled like plastic. There are some issues to that. Not all plastics can be recycled, but these are all options that you could consider when you're building out your print project or your packaging project in the first place. As if I haven't already given you enough to think about, we also want to think about how our projects are being printed in the first place. There are a lot of different printing processes out there, but there's a few that are really common, and I want to talk about those four really common types. The first one is an inkjet type of printing. This is like your home printer typically. Inkjets spray tiny droplets of ink onto whatever substrate. They're great for small runs, variable data printing, where the packaging or the product is a little different on each print. There's digital printing, which is usually toner based. Some people refer to this as laser printing. This uses toner particles fused onto the paper with heat. These are great processes for medium runs with a really fast turnaround time. This isn't typically something that you'll be doing at home, but that somebody with a print shop can do for you. There's offset printing, sometimes referred to as lithography. This uses plates and an ink fountain. It's great for large runs. There's a much lower cost per unit if you're doing a high volume. Most offset printing is not available in small quantities because there's a lot of setup involved. This is these big print presses that you see in old movies where there's, sheets of paper flying through this machine that's the size of a whole room. There's a newer type of printing called electro ink that combines some things between digital printing and offset printing to create more flexibility and slightly smaller runs. The most common version of electro ink printing is an HP Indigo press. If you ask around and the printer that you want to work with has an HP Indigo press, they're doing electro ink printing. All of these have pros and cons and sustainability considerations, so let's talk about those. The number one thing that people request from me when they're really looking for eco-friendly printing is soy ink. That's not necessarily because soy-based ink is the best ink and the most eco-friendly option out there. It's just the thing that people have heard of the most. So let's talk about some of the ways that printing happens and how those processes can be more eco-friendly. This can arm you with questions that you can ask your printer as you explore the options that are out there. The number one consideration is the chemistry of the ink or the toner. So soy and vegetable-based inks can be more eco-friendly. A lot of digital and toner-based print shops use low VOC and recycled toner systems, so there's a closed loop around that toner production. You may want to ask about cartridge and waste recycling. Does the printer recycle spent cartridges? Do they run closed loop systems? You can also ask about make-ready waste. So make-ready waste is how much paper and material needs to be used before your print job can start. In offset printing, this can actually be quite a lot of paper. That's one of the reasons why we really don't want to turn to offset until we need very large quantities, because there will be some waste. Digital printing is much more waste efficient on shorter runs of prints. We want to think about substrate compatibility. Not every printing method works on every stock or finish. So some finishes can be really difficult to adhere to or require extra curing, which uses more energy, or special coatings, which can limit the recyclability of what you're trying to create. There are some certifications for certain kinds of print practices. FSC certified can apply to both paper and also certain kinds of print processes. There's eco logos and PrintWise. I'll give you a checklist at the end so you can evaluate print vendors yourself and try to figure out if your print job is actually going to be more eco-friendly. There is one more issue with all of this, which is that how you set up your file can really affect how eco-friendly it is. So let's talk about choices that you can make at home before you ever talk to a printer to improve your eco-friendliness. Oh my gosh, this is a lot of variables to try to keep in mind. So how can you make eco-conscious choices given all this technical stuff? The first thing that you can do is get back to those basics. We want to reduce, reuse, and recycle. So let's start with reduce. Only print what you need and optimize your layouts. Make sure that you know what size paper your printer is going to be printing on, and figure out sizes for your prints that fit in multiples on those sizes of paper. If you design something with print that goes all the way to the edge of the page, you are building waste into your design. Create a white border. Anytime we have a white border, we can fit more documents on a page, and we don't have to cut off the excess to create that full bleed design, that design where the ink goes all the way to the edge. That is my number one thing. Design with a white border. Let's also think about reusability. Can parts of our packaging or our inserts or our printed products be reused by our customers? Can we use boxes and sleeves that can be reused? Whenever we're picking materials or products, let's make sure that they can be recyclable in as many scenarios as possible. That usually means we're sticking to paper and cardboard. We're not using plastic in most scenarios. Let's really think about where our products and services are coming from. This is a hidden ecological cost in a lot of prints. So are you getting paper from overseas? Are you getting prints from overseas? That is adding hidden carbon costs to whatever you're having printed. We want to stick as close to local as we can. This isn't always possible, but let's try to stay in country or in region when possible to reduce those hidden carbon costs. Let's always get samples and test runs because we want to try small runs before we get a bulk order of something that's not what we wanted and maybe is going to be difficult, if impossible, to use. I never want to see somebody leave with something that they can't really use because they didn't think through what it was going to look like ahead of time. Get those samples. If your printer doesn't offer samples, let's find somebody that does. And then let's really think about educating our customers. Can we add stickers, messages, stamps on our packaging to encourage our customers to recycle and reuse so that they're on board with closing that loop also? In packaging specifically, people often worry, and I've heard this more and more recently, that things don't get recycled anymore. That's actually not true for paper and cardboard. Paper and cardboard rates for recycling are relatively strong. In the US, cardboard recycling rates are often about 76%. Paper recycling is 65 to 69% in the most recent reporting that we have. Those are great rates for recycling and recyclability. So can we use cardboard and paper as much as possible to make sure that we are recycling as much as possible? I promised you a checklist, so here it is. I'm going to leave this on the screen for a bit so that you can take a picture of it, so that you can actually use this in your own business decisions. Step number one, and I know this is a wild thing for somebody that sells printing to say, but really think about whether or not you need something before you get it printed in the first place. Then we can start thinking about paper and printing choices. Then we can think about our print processes and ask our printers some questions about what they're actually doing. Then we can consider our packaging and shipping, make sure that we're doing things that are recyclable, reducing things, minimizing our sizes so we don't have a lot of filler and space in our packaging, and then remind our customers to reduce and reuse as much as possible. And then really think about those hidden impacts as well. This is not a perfect score kind of system. Just try to check off as much of this as you can. Are there one or two changes that you could make to what you're doing that you can commit to consistently, that stick to your brand, stick to your process, make you look great, but also really improve that eco-friendliness of what you're doing? I hope this was helpful. As always, I'm always happy to hear from anybody that has questions. On the next slide, I'll provide you with my contact information. Please do not be afraid to reach out. I would love to hear from you. Again, here's all my contact information. Please feel free to follow us on social media. Shoot me an email anytime. I would love to hear from you. If you're in Flagstaff, Arizona, oh my gosh, please come by. I would love to meet you in person. I absolutely am here as a resource for you. And again, I love talking about this stuff. I would be delighted to hear from you. So please connect with me. Let's talk. Let's improve the eco-friendliness of your print and packaging. I hope I can hear from you soon.